Hey, shalom and good evening from the Jezreel Valley here in the Galilee in Israel. Thankfully, today was relatively quiet, but boy, oh boy, the drama is at its peak with President Trump just announcing that actually in the last 2 days, America and Iran are engaged in negotiations to bring about an end to the war with a full surrendering of Iran to America's demand. According to President Trump, 15 different points were agreed upon. According to the president, it's including the U.S. Access to the enriched uranium to take it from Iran. It includes the Iranian basically agreement to cease from dealing with any nuclear nuclear activity, as well as other issues. It's interesting because President Trump said we're talking to someone high in the hierarchy, but not to the supreme leader, simply because the supreme leader is not responsive. Nobody can talk to him. The guy is either dead or he's in coma. But the speculations are that he's actually engaging in talks with the Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the Parliament, who is currently the most powerful person once Ali Larijani was eliminated last week. So it's very interesting because the Iranians do anything they can possibly to deny that they're talking with the U.S., to deny that there's any negotiations, and they don't understand what's going on. Now, if President Trump is bluffing, he's doing a great job because the Iranians are definitely under a lot of pressure. And if he's not bluffing, that means the Iranians are actually capitulating to the U.S. demands. And President Trump made it very clear that in just about 10, 15 hours, America was supposed to hit the largest energy power plant of Iran, and it would be destroyed completely. And the Iranians contacted the U.S. administration following his ultimatum and asked to talk and to somehow find a solution for it. Folks, no one knows exactly what runs in the president's mind. We all know that he's tricking the enemy. He has been doing that for a few times in the past. We don't know what's going on, but there's so much on the table right now. Today, we're going to have Q&A that is dedicated once again to the war with Iran, historic, biblical, interesting things that are happening right now. Pastor Barry Stagner is with me, and today also Jason Comans, the leader of Gen Zion, our young adults ministry, is the one who will be running the Q&A. Pastor Mike Golay is in his military service right now at the Air Force, and unfortunately he cannot be with us. So shalom, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Doing well. Shalom to you, Amir.
Shalom.
Shalom, Jason. Jason, can you tell us a couple words about Gen Zion? Maybe some people don't know exactly what it's all about.
Sure, yeah, it'd be a privilege. Gen Zion is the young adults initiative of Behold Israel. We really took off with it about 5 months ago, and the aim is simple. We want to transform the minds of the next generation from the foundation of a biblical worldview, especially when it relates to Israel and God's unfolding plans, past, present, future, because we believe if you get Israel right, you're going to get your Bible right, and you're going to know how to understand the world around you and live a more effective spiritual life. So we're targeting the next generation while it's still called today, to bring change in this world today.
Yeah, Gen Zion, Gen Z, we're actually tackling that generation, Gen Z. Pastor Barry, in just a few weeks, we're going to actually have the Israel Decree Conference, the Proximity Conference at your church, and I think that's exactly what we're going to talk about, aren't we?
Well, absolutely, and I think what Jason said is so important. If you get Israel wrong, you got to get everything else wrong, and especially now as we draw near to that time where prophecies is not just being fulfilled, but ultimately going to be fulfilled as it relates to the nation of Israel. So this is, I think, just of vital importance for people to get signed up. We are going to host the conference. Pastor Bob Copany at Calvary East Anaheim is going to host the conference, and they do a wonderful job there. So I encourage you, go to our website, calvarycoc.org, and sign up there and join us on May the 2nd.
Yeah. On the screen, we have the QR code. If you can scan it. Pastor Bear, if you can get the microphone a bit closer to your mouth so we can hear you better, that'll be great. And Jason, why don't we start? You're going to run the Q&A today. Again, today it's a dedicated Q&A to questions that you have especially around the Iran war and, of course, the biblical aspect of it. So let's start.
Yeah, friends, go ahead. If there's anything you're curious about regarding the war between Israel, Iran, the U.S., and there's just things you've been wondering, please throw your questions in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, and we have someone collecting those and filtering them to me. So we won't get to all of them, but we're going to do our best. So go ahead and throw those in there. But to kick things off, we actually have kind of a dual question here from Shannon. And it seems that Israel is able to pinpoint exactly where they want their missile strikes to go. It appears that Iran is aiming for the general area. They're just content if they blow something up. Is this due to Iran not having the same capabilities as Israel, or is this divine intervention? Is it a little bit of both? I guess, Amir, as a local Israeli, what's your perception of this?
Well, 100% of Israel's strikes in Iran are against military and regime infrastructures, and therefore civilians they feel very safe. We don't target civilians. We don't believe the civilians are the target. We target people who are actually operating against the civilians in Iran, but of course those that wants to destroy Israel as well, which is part of their agenda. Now, Israel targets military targets and targets that are under the guise of civilian, but we know that there's military operation there. In fact, a couple, I think 10 minutes ago, I posted on Telegram that an IRGC headquarters in a civilian infrastructure was struck by the IDF. Now, on the other hand, our enemy is not just targeting civilians, but is trying to harm as many as possible by actually launching cluster warhead missiles, which means when the missile go back to the atmosphere, it actually disperses to 40 different warheads. It's not one huge warhead that can destroy maybe 5-10 buildings, but it disperses so it can actually hit a huge radius, and for the most part, it has been sent and aimed at civilian populated areas, and that of course causes a lot of damage, and thankfully not as many casualties as they hope. That is definitely the hand of God. Give you an example also. The other day, there was in the southern city of Arad, an Iranian missile, 450 kilogram of explosive, landed. Unfortunately, we failed to intercept it. And we're investigating right now what's the cause. But the whole missile landed right at the courtyard between buildings. And therefore, it did not destroy completely any one of the buildings. It caused a lot of damage, but all the people that were in the bomb shelters were safe, and anyone that was not was injured, but no one died. Now, if that missile would have landed on the building, on one of those, all of the people would have been killed, because 450 kilogram of explosive with a velocity that it comes would have destroyed it even with the bomb shelters. So we see the hand of God, we see the mercies of God, we see the grace of God, we see it's unbelievable. If you judge what has been sent to Israel, nearly 400 missiles, and what has hit, less than 8% of them, 92% interception rate. Pretty amazing, isn't it? You understand that we should have had thousands of casualties, and we don't. Is it luck? No, I don't believe in luck. I believe in the grace of God and the protection of God. And yes, we do have people that are injured, and in some cases we do have fatalities as well. But we do see tons of miracles. And again, they aim at civilians. We aim at military targets. That's the big difference. And this is why whenever you see videos from Iran, you see civilians are freely driving and walking. They know we're not aiming at them. The only people in Iran that feel hunted are the Basij and the IRGC people. They know we're after them. Everybody else feels not just safe, but actually they feel protected by the Israeli drones above, knowing that we're after the bad guys. So that's the state of affairs at this point.
I lost you, Jason. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I can't hear Jason at all. I think this makes such an important point. It's a great question, Amir, and I think both of us have battled on multiple fronts together and both separately. This anti-Semitic replacement theology. And, I think you really have to ask the question right now with this 92% interception rate, on top of the fact that, the structural damage has been nothing in comparison to that which has taken place inside of Iran. And I think it begs the question, if God is finished with the nation of Israel, why is he still doing so much to protect them? If modern Israel is not biblical Israel, why are things happening the way they're happening right now? Why is he clearly watching over, as he promised to do, neither sleeping nor slumbering, but watching over the apple of his eye? I think this underscores the importance of what Jason is doing, as well as the reality that we are watching Bible prophecy unfold, including the supernatural protection of his chosen people, the Jews.
Yeah, and as we were talking about this, I was recalling a message Amir taught several years ago in the U.S. He taught a message called, "Why Should Christians Support Israel?" And in this message, he actually shared a headline that, I don't know if it was the Palestinians, some terrorist group, had said their claim was that the God of the Jews keeps redirecting our rockets when we attack. And so that came to mind as this question was asked as well. So it's just interesting, even from their side, they see that there's some divine intervention on behalf of this nation. But moving forward, the next question that came in anonymously, I think Pastor Barry will kick off with you, but if no negotiations are currently being held, as Iran has stated, where does Israel go from here? And I would add, or the U.S., like what's next? Can the escalation go nuclear? Because I think it was just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, that President Trump tweeted or put on Truth Social that the Iranians now want to talk. I don't. So where do things head from here?
Yeah, I don't see anything going nuclear in this situation. First of all, Iran has enriched uranium to the 60% grade, but to, I think, everybody's knowledge, there is no possession of a nuclear warhead at this point in time. Now, that doesn't mean that something couldn't have been attempted by North Korea or Russia or someone to slip something into their hands. Probably not actually in Iran, but probably more like somewhere in Syria where they could, from a closer proximity, do some sort of dirty bomb or something like that, which could very well lead to the destruction of Damascus. But no, I don't see this going in that direction. But I think the potential for this being a catalyst for the onslaught of the Ezekiel War is very, very possible. But it'll be interesting. I think Amir started off with something we all need to be paying attention to. the president has been very wise in how he has dealt with this situation, not like previous administrations, letting them know what we're going to do, but rather keeping his cards close to his vest, as the saying goes. So, he's mentioned multiple times that his desire is not necessarily regime change, but, unless that happens, the Iranian people are going to continue to live in the way that they have been living under this huge, huge demonic oppression. And, barring boots on the ground, the IRGC is going to continue to do what they've done under the leadership of whoever is actually in charge right now, with the newly appointed Ayatollah. I don't think he's in hiding unless he's in hiding in a permanent hiding place. So, who knows? But I don't see this going nuclear personally.
Yeah. Amir, what do you see? How do you see Israel proceeding?
Well, both Israel and America are explicitly saying that the targets and the objectives of the war does not include regime change as a goal that has to be achieved in order for the war to end. Both administrations made it very clear that we will prepare the conditions for that to happen, but it's up to the Iranian people if they do it or not. And that's why much of what is being done in the past week, was dedicated mostly to weaken the government institutions of Iran and the regime grip on the people. If the beginning of the war was immediately to deal with immediate threats of air defense systems and launchers and missiles and radars and all of that, the second week was more missile silos and underground missile cities and all of that. The third week was mostly against regime targets, and that obviously to create a situation where the regime is unable to communicate and control, and therefore, and then of course comes the drone attacks on besieged checkpoints in different parts of Iran, and they're on the run right now. So basically, I cannot guarantee that this war will end with a Reza Pahlavi as president or whatever. I cannot even guarantee that someone from within the Iranian opposition in Iran will be the one. It seems like anyone who will collaborate with President Trump to achieve his goals to remove the nuclear, enrich uranium, the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, supporting the proxies and all of that, if he will agree to those terms, he'll probably stay in power, just like he did with Venezuela. Now, my dream is to see the regime fall. For the sake of the Iranians, I would love to see that happening. But biblically, I always say that, eventually Iran will come against Israel. So, from where we are right now, fighting the IRGC and the Ayatollahs, to Iran attacking Israel again, I don't know what's going to happen. Are the Ayatollahs going to fall and then there will be a friendlier regime? Maybe. Are we going to have some sort of an Ayatollah that will just kind of collaborate with Trump until Trump is out of office? Could be. Even if there is a new leader and peace with Israel, at some point it won't stay there, because this biblical truth that Iran will join the coalition against Israel is something that is an anchor that I can trust. It's biblical. I don't look at circumstances. I always look at biblical anchors that I can find, and anything between them, it's speculations. Now, I can speculate, but it will be my own opinion. Biblically, the true and real freedom of the Iranian people will come after the Ezekiel war, when the evil regime will be defeated, and then I believe they will be free from this ideology of radical Islam, which is the root of all of their problem right now.
That's right.
I think that what you mentioned is so interesting, just the reality of inevitability according to the Bible. Because there's so many things that we try to tell ourselves can make the world a more comfortable place in the here and now, and there might be temporary seasons of reprieve, but ultimately the Bible is the anchor for what we know is coming, and we have to live in light of that. Moving forward, Genevieve has a really interesting question, and I think too, if you're a new listener to Behold Israel or to Barry Stagner, but this is one of the first times you've tuned into one of these Q&As, I think it's important to understand the biblical and world history about how, just realizing how far back the tension and conflict goes biblically. Because Genevieve asks, how does God's promise to Hagar via Ishmael fit into end times prophecy? So what I really want to hone in on here is, and beginning with Amir, I think it's interesting that one of the greatest geopolitical, if you will, issue on earth stems all the way back to Abraham's refusal to wait for the promise through Isaac. Did you guys lose me?
We lost your video. We can hear you.
Okay. Oh, let me allow you to answer this first, though. But it stems all the way back to Abraham's impatience and Abraham's sin. But God also made a promise to the descendants of Ishmael. How does that fit into what we see in the world today?
Well,
how does that fit into this conflict?
The problem that we have today is that those who receive the promise prefer the promise that was given to someone else and fight to get the fulfillment of the promise that was given to someone else. Ishmael was greatly blessed. And if Ishmael would only hold on to the blessing and the location and the geography that he was given, everything would have been great. The problem that we see now is that the descendants of Ishmael wants that which was promised to the descendants of Isaac. And we know that the son of promise is Isaac. Not that Ishmael was cursed. He was never cursed. He was actually blessed. But the thing is, when you believe that you are the son of promise, and that's, by the way, the sad thing about replacement theology. People come and they to the people of promise, to the people of covenant, and they say, now you lost it, now it's ours. And the attempt to take that which was given to a specific group of people is the source of the problem, not the solution. It's the source of the issue, not the outcome of any. And this is why I do believe with all of my heart that whenever people are satisfied and content with what they receive, they'll be greatly blessed. But whenever they are not, and they want that which is not theirs, that's satanic and diabolic. And I honestly believe that whenever it says they say that they are Jews, but they're not, but nothing but the synagogue of Satan, that's exactly it. They are not what they say they are, and therefore it's satanic. Therefore, it's not of God. And so when it comes to the sons of Ishmael, when it comes to the descendants of Ishmael, they have been greatly blessed. Go to the Arabian Peninsula, go to Dubai, go to Saudi Arabia, go to other places. You cannot say they are cursed. In fact, a lot of countries around the world wish they had that wealth and blessing, and some of them might say, we could have done better things than that, but still, it's far away from being a blessing. But whenever they come against God's people, and whenever they start fighting against God's people, they see nothing but the anger of God come upon them, and they see nothing but curse that comes upon them. And no one in this world will ever see blessing when he comes against those whom God called mine. You cannot show me one country, one empire that lasts whenever they came against the people of God. Now, it's not because Israel is perfect, it's because God promised that. It's the plan of God, it's the heart of God, it's the word of God. And you come against that one, you're in trouble. Barry, you may have something to add.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting, Amir, that the Genesis narrative tells us, that he is going to be blessed. 12 nations will come from him. But it also says he'll be a wild man, and every man's hand will be against him. And we're seeing, this component, even though as Abraham pleaded with God, oh, that Ishmael may live before you. And the Lord just simply gave a one-word answer. He said, no. He said, no, this isn't the group that I'm going to bring the Messiah into the world through, and the chosen people of God. So, we're watching that particular element of being manifested today. And, watching these things unfold, Amir, I think just reminds us, and I think it's healthy for us to keep in mind, and what you were pointing out earlier regarding what's going to happen eventually with Iran, Russia, Turkey, Sudan, and Libya, is because he's not simply foretold it, he has foreseen it. And therefore, that's why I think history in advance is an appropriate way to view Bible prophecy. So, Ishmael, whose name actually means God hears, but, most of the Arabs are calling out to a non-existent deity. And this is yielding what was said of Ishmael, that he is a wild man. And people are turning against, what's come out of the Arab peoples, and that is Islam.
Yeah.
All right. And so thank you both. Moving forward to Paula's question. In your opinion, regarding the Ayatollah regime versus Reza Pahlavi, does he sincerely want to restore Iran? Are his intentions to rebuild the country? And Pastor Barry, I think if there's some new listeners who maybe aren't familiar with the history of the Shah, maybe just fill people in a little bit to show them what it was like before the revolution, and then what you anticipate moving forward.
Yeah, I think everybody would do well to maybe jump on YouTube, since most of us spend time there anyway, and look up videos of pre-1979 Iran. It looks like Los Angeles. It looks like the culture here in the United States. And, of course, there was, kind of a sultan-ish component to the Shah. And, there were some of the people that didn't like the westernized culture and wanted to return to or take the nation to the direction that we're now seeing. But, it is interesting, Jason. I was in Turkey back in 2012, and our tour guide pointed out two women walking down the street who were in full burqas. And he said, we never used to see that.
Wow.
The wind is changing here, and there's a shift going on. And Turkey has now experienced what Iran has experienced. A former kind of westernized type of culture has now become this oppressive, face-covered, hijab burqa-wearing regime. So, I think this is why so many of us have a burden for the Iranian people, who are distinct from the Iranian regime. They don't want this. I think a lot of times there's a misconception that all Iranians are Muslim. No, they're not. As a matter of fact, the church is growing faster in Iran than anywhere else in the whole of the world. God is on the move there, and the Iranian people are a good, hardworking, kind people, and they've been oppressed all this time. So that's why I think everybody is, turning against this group that has slaughtered some 40,000 people in a matter of hours.
And we have to also be reminded, the Shah in Persian, it means king. And by the way, checkmate, chess. This is an Iranian invented game that was actually, it's called Shahmat, which means the king is dead. They invented that. And basically, as a king, it wasn't a democracy. Okay, it wasn't like it was obviously way more westernized and free, but it was still a monarchy, so to speak. Now, it seems like at the time the people were not exactly happy with how the monarch was. They looked at it as very corrupt, and he had a lot of money, and a lot of people were just very, very poor, and all of that. And I think that, and by the way, at that time, Israel and Iran were very good friends. El Al used to have direct flights to Tehran. I don't know if you know that. Israel had an embassy in Tehran. But the thing is this, Pahlavi today understands that coming back, it's going to be hard to restore this whole monarchy style thing. So he says, I'll be just a transition until we decide what we do. But a lot of people think, and it's a Western-minded thinking, that there has to be democracy there. But there is no Middle Eastern democracy, nowhere to be found. It's not something that the Middle East is known for, used for. In fact, the most effective regime in the Middle East are the Emirates, where you have smaller territories governed by tribal leaders who understands the area. That's where they come from, and they protect everybody who is under them. In Iran's case, because it's such a vast country with so many different minorities, it's important to somehow bring a leader that everybody will feel comfortable with. Because remember, it has Azeris and Tajikis and Persians and Arabs and so many other Turkmens and others. There's so many different minorities. In fact, the Persians are not even the majority in Iran. They are 48%, which is not the majority. They're the largest minority in Iran. So to bring someone who may have grown up in Iran, but fled with his dad and lived most of his life away in either European or in America, European countries in America, might be very challenging, because most of the people today in Iran were born after he was no longer there. This is why President Trump is not immediately, automatically saying Pahlavi is the next leader. He contemplates on who should we have as a leader in the interim period. And Pahlavi, I believe, is one of the options, but I'm not sure President Trump believes that's the only option. Now, I think he's a great guy. I think he's a wonderful man. I think he will bring great things to the Iranian people. He actually understands what his people needs. I think he also would immediately sign peace with Israel and see the benefits thereof or therefrom. But I am not sure how much President Trump is convinced that it is a feasible solution at this point. Now, honestly, President Trump said even a couple weeks ago, even if it's an Ayatollah, as long as he's no longer against Israel in America, and as long as he's doing what we need him to do, stop the nuclear, stop the ballistic missiles, stop the blocking of the Strait of Hormuz, and stop funding all the proxies and start taking care of his own people, we don't mind that. So I think it's going to be very interesting. The Speaker of the Parliament, Mohammad Ghalibaf, is now being mentioned as the one who is about to start the negotiations with the U.S. administration. I think he's an evil man. I think he's worse than anyone else. He is one of the most extreme elements in the government. I honestly hope that all of the talks about him is basically to find out where he is and to eliminate him, because he's not the solution, he is the problem. And once he's out of the way, I think then you might find a solution.
Thank you. And on this note, you know, what stems from all of this when it comes to Iran's detest for the Jews and for a state of Israel, and of course I'm speaking about Iran's leadership, Gloria asks this question regarding anti-Semitism. Is it right to think that God allows the killing of Jews to happen, or violence towards Jews worldwide, because he wants them to go back to Israel? If that's true, how can we as believers pray? And actually, Amir, you posted on Telegram last week. I would like to reshape this with a more thorough view and understanding of what's going on in the world. But you shared on Telegram last week, for the Jewish people, it's becoming more and more clear that the safest place in the world is the nation of Israel. It's time to do the biblical thing and come home. How does what you posted relate to what she's asking here, and how can we as believers pray?
Well, first of all, hatred of the Jewish people is satanic. It's diabolic. Is demonic. And so it's not new. It has been there since day one. Since Israel became a nation, we had Jew haters in this world. They come and go. They change names, they change nationality, but it's always been there. Now, God is not making them hate Israel, but God sometimes is using their hatred to allow the Jewish people to understand that they need to move on. I think when you read Ezekiel 36, you find it's very clear. God is saying to the people of Israel, I will bring you from the four corners of the world where I dispersed you. And then he said, I do it because of my name's sake, not because of you. And then he said, you violated my law and caused me to disperse you. And when I dispersed you, the people around the world asked themselves, aren't you God's people? How come you're not in your land? That's the the thing that basically was known as profanity for God. You profane my name just by being in the wrong place. I am bringing you back for the sake of my name, he said. So I believe that whenever the Jewish people are away from the land, others will always wonder, why are you here? They will always look at them as a stranger, as the problem. And that is an insult to God, who already prepared a place for them and gave it to them for eternity. So what I'm trying to say is, I understand if there's a Jewish guy in the UK or in France or in Germany that was born there, his parents were born there, their parents were born there, but at some point we have to stop this and say, okay, I understand I'm third, fourth, fifth generation, but the real place where I need to go, where I should be, is the land of Israel. And I think that in light of the growing anti-Semitism, you see what's going on. Now, remember, the Holocaust didn't happen 500 years ago. The Holocaust happened less than 90 years ago in the most enlightened and educated continent on planet Earth. And yet you could see that even though the Jewish people were nothing but an amazing contributors to the culture of that time, they were looked at as the problem, and you do not belong here. It's not you. And it's funny because now we're coming over here to Israel, and the enemy says through the local Palestinians, you do not belong here. Go back to Europe. You see, the enemy will never ever think that the Jewish people have any place. But God said, I have a place for you. I prepared a place for you. And when I'm bringing you back, I bring you back to your own land. It's a place that I gave you. So regardless of what people say, or what the Satan says, or what the enemy says. God and what he says is the most important thing. So Jewish people, I'm telling you, I understand you may have been born there, you may have assets and wealth and treasures, whatever you have there. It's not for you to stay wherever you are. This is your place. Now, you can come here because you're convicted and you have strong conviction because of ideology and biblical conviction, or you'll find yourself coming back here because of persecution. But at some point, you will come back here and you will know and understand that this is the place that God has prepared for you.
Yeah. And Barry, anything to add?
Yeah, I think just remembering in answer to the question, God said he will bring them back. And whatever means that may be, as Amir said, might be personal conviction, might just be a draw to the land, because this is the land that God gave them. Could be what we're watching happen now, the rising anti-Semitism, which is manifesting itself in many places in forms of violence. Good grief, I just saw yesterday someone kick a 4-year-old girl here in the United States, kick her to the ground because she is a Jew. And, there are the proverbial straws that break the camel's back, so to speak, that will, I believe, be a portion, at least, of the catalyst of the means through which God draws people back to the land. But, Jason, there is some debate. I know there are those who think that all the Jews have to be back for the rest of the prophetic scenario to be fulfilled. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I do know there's a lot more Jews in Israel now than there was in 1947. And so they are returning to the land, making Aliyah, and God is drawing them back, has been since 1890. So he's going to draw. The means he uses, that's up to him.
And I think that's a really fascinating point, because I've heard Christian authors and commentators call the days in which we live the times of the greater Exodus, and highlighting the fact that, it was amazing that 2 million Jews returned, 2 million Hebrews returned to Israel from one nation, Egypt, but today we're watching millions return to Israel from all over the world, just like the Lord said it would be. And I mean, even in 2020, right, the year of COVID, where travel was very difficult, over 20,000 Jews made Aliyah to Israel from over 70 countries.
Jason, in the last 3 weeks, war, missiles, thousands of Jews open cases around the world to make Aliyah, to come over to Israel. Thousands of Jews across the world are now showing interest. I'm not talking about before, I'm talking about during the war. They see the good hand of God, they see the hatred around the world, and they see how this country protects its people, and God is protecting this country. And I think that, eventually the Jewish people will be back. There's no doubt about it. And, they have to be back, because when the Lord returns, what his feet are standing on Mount of Olives, as Zechariah 14 says, and when Zechariah 12 says, they look at him whom they pierced, that is the nation of Israel that he's coming back to. The nation has to be back in the land in order to receive him. And it's him who said, you will not see me, Jerusalem, until you say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed is he who come in the name of the Lord. So I truly believe that more and more and more and more Jewish people will return in the very near future, especially in light of the great victory that is around the corner and the great prosperity that will follow that one. So I'm very excited, and again, I shouldn't be surprised. This is God in action. That's the word of God, the promise of God, and it's happening before our very eyes.
Yeah, and I think just to conclude that,
let me jump back in here for a minute.
Please.
Amir, that was a great point, because what we've talked about many times before is that the vast majority of radical Islam is wiped out at the end of the Ezekiel war scenario. And, just like the Lord has said multiple times through Pharaoh and others down through the ages, I'm doing this that you may know that I am the Lord your God. And I think when that happens, as you were alluding to a moment ago, I mean, what a tremendous spiritual awakening, at least or draw back to their heritage, could potentially take place at the end of the Ezekiel War, and people en masse heading to their God-given homeland. I think that's a really, really interesting perspective, and drawing that down at the end of the Ezekiel War makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yep. And on that note, as tensions continue to rise in the region and move towards this ultimately, and we see these little phases leading towards it, Alice has an interesting question regarding another lingering issue in the Middle East for Israel primarily, which is the Houthis. She's asking, please update on the Houthis. They seem to be waiting in the wings on when to join in on the fighting. Is it going to be... she's asking if it's after Hezbollah is finished. To me, it makes more sense that they're going to jump in and be an annoyance while Israel's already dealing with multiple fronts. What do you see happening? I know that they were anticipated to potentially jump in early this week to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, the Houthis, they actually already announced that they are going to join, but I think they have a problem. And the problem is when they think that their patrons are about to lose, what's the point of being hammered and losing as well? I think that they understand that Saudi Arabia will be free to help the legal government of Yemen to start an offensive on the Houthis. So shooting a few ballistic missiles towards Israel that Israel can easily intercept will not really help any cause, but will bring about the end of these people. Now, they might do here and there a few things just to prove that they are doing something, but in reality, I think that they understand that when you have three American carriers, and when you have the two most powerful air forces on planet Earth dominating the skies of the entire Middle East, and when you have all the strategic bombers present around, the B-1s, the B-2s, the B-52s, the last thing you want to do is join the war. So I think that if they join, it'll be in a symbolic way and in a way that will kind of save face. But as long as the United States is having the upper hand in this conflict, and Israel is just flying back and forth really all around and destroying the enemy as well, I think the Houthis are in the big problem right now. And remember, Israel has breached the Houthis' communications capabilities, and we found out where their entire government is, and we eliminated all of them at once. And so they understand that this is probably not a good idea to start all over again, and we can easily drop a few more presents on the ports in Yemen and destroy their economy completely. So I think that at this point, they will only join if they think that it will help and it will cause any change and any difference, not if it's not.
Yeah, I think
Jason,
a token could very well happen. But I mean, watching the world scene and what's been happening with Israel and the U.S. in both Iran and what's been happening with Hezbollah, Hezbollah decided to jump in, and look what's happening to them. I don't think the Houthis are going to say, hey, you know what? Let's have our country blown to smithereens. And so we can just say, we got in this. So I think maybe there's a little bit of intimidation with, like Amir mentioned, all of these, not just the aircraft, but, the defense systems and all that. So it'd be foolish. So most likely, they'll lob a few rockets and say, hey, we're there for you, Iran and Hezbollah. But I don't see any major attempt to turn the tide of this war in the favor of Israel's enemies. Not going to happen.
Yeah. And so with the 10 minutes we have left, there's another really important question that came in that is super relevant, especially amongst my generation and Gen Z. Abigail's asking, what do you say to someone, and Pastor Barry, I'll begin with you, what do you say to someone who says the U.S. supports Israel too much, whether that's financially, blah, 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 this whole facade of America first? And I call it a facade because the people who are claiming they're America first really are not America first in principle. It's a talking point, but they have no backing to it. And the phrase that comes to mind for me is, you never know, sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. So how do you respond to someone who makes such a claim?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to encourage them to pay attention. I think that's a lot of the problem that we have in our world today, especially in some of the younger generations. The Iranians since 1979, at least the regime, has been basically as their mantra repeating, death to the great Satan, death to the little Satan. That's America and Israel. And so, for us to supposedly the dog getting wagged by the tail, as so many are accusing our president of being basically pushed forward by Netanyahu. I think Netanyahu had the classic response to that accusation, which was, nobody tells Donald Trump what to do. And, so I think we just need to give some of the young people who have been indoctrinated on many of our university campuses a good dose of truth. Because the reality is, this is a spiritual battle at its base. And I think especially young Christians need to understand that all things are drawing down to that 70th week of Daniel. Israel, according to the Bible, is going to take center stage in the world. In Zechariah 12:3, they're going to become a burdensome stone to all nations. We're watching that happen right now. Even though, as we saw the heinous actions of Hamas on October 7, 2023, it was just days before the world started to turn against the Jews. It makes no sense. So what we don't want to do is align ourselves with the wrong side. And I think we have to understand that, we have a president now here in the States who thinks more like the Prime Minister of Israel, in that they recognize that the words that are coming out of the mouth it's not just hyperbole or bloviating, it is a real threat. And their desire is to take out the United States. And, who they consider, because of our westernized culture, and certainly Christianity would play a part in that, they want to see us eliminated and the influence that the U.S. has had. So I think we just need to recognize what the facts actually are. It's not simply, hey, Israel's in trouble, let's do whatever they tell us to do. That's not how things have been operating. Our president responded to a real and present danger from the Iranians. And I think the Europeans are now maybe kind of shaking their heads and waking up a little bit, realizing that there are ballistic missiles that can reach them too. And they should have been in the game from day one. But, again, I think we need to understand this primarily biblically, that the world is drawing down to that final point where God's attention is going to turn to the nation of Israel. The 70th week of Daniel is going to be fulfilled, and all of these things are precursors to what the Bible has said long ago. We happen to be a privileged generation, as difficult as they are to watch unfold right before our eyes. So I think they need to pay attention to what is really being said, really being done, and how this all relates to Bible prophecy.
I want
And,
to
and come to understand. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I want to remind people that much of our teachings on that topic, as well as other topics related to America and Israel, Bible prophecy, are not only done online, but we also sometimes create conferences where we talk about these things. Our upcoming conference is Proximity, and it's going to be on May 2nd at Calvary Chapel of East Anaheim's facility, but it's organized by Calvary Central OC. And that's the QR code. If you want to join us, Pastor Barry and myself will teach from the book of the Israel Decree. Of course, we're going to teach the Bible, but obviously the topic is the Israel Decree. But also, if you want to join us for a whole week of Bible prophecy, teaching, and fellowship, and worship, and great time together in Alaska during America's 250th birthday. Join us to our Alaska cruise this coming July. That's the QR code. We still have a few spots left, and we would love to not just see you there, but also spend time with you and fellowship in person with you as well. So that's the QR code. We still have about 100 spots left, and we would love to see you there. I also want to remind my Japanese followers that next weekend, I think, not this coming one, but the one after, I'm supposed to be in Japan before the United States. And we have events in Tokyo, Nagano, in Sapporo, and in Osaka. And all of it is in beholdisrael.org. Go to the website. This is not only where you can find our upcoming events, but also if you want to help and support this ministry, that's the only place that is secure, and you should do it through. I want to thank Pastor Barry for joining us today. Thankfully, you probably saw me looking down. I was making sure there are no rocket barrages coming, because I could hear a few things outside, and I have a map in front of me of Israel and the threats that might come. And I needed to make sure that on my phone that there is no alert. So excuse me if it didn't look a little polite, but this is my life nowadays. Always making sure that the sounds that I hear are not alerts and rockets that are coming in. I want to thank you, Jason, for helping us today. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, comment, share, and like this video as well. And also, I want to thank you, Pastor Barry, as always. We are hopefully going to fix some of our technical problems today. And we're going to see you this coming Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for Mideast and Beyond, live from Galilee and from California. 10 a.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Israel time. We haven't changed our time yet in Israel. So until then, thank you, God bless you, and shalom.